and does it matter to us here at home? Joining me in the studio to comment on this is Barry Nussbaum. Barry is the founder of the Israel Group. And also in studio is Micha Danzig, former Israeli soldier and former NYPD officer. Let's start with you, Micha. Why is this race so tight?
Well, there's a number of factors. We cannot discount a lot of external pressures that are going on. There's a lot of campaigning, so to speak, that's happening from outside forces, including people on behalf of the Obama administration in Israel campaigning for Mr. Netanyahu's opponents. But we also have to remember that when Americans and others are looking inside at the Israeli elections, they're mostly focused on the things that we're talking about here, security issues. They're talking about, the Iran situation. They're talking about the Palestinians. But Israelis they're citizens of a state, and they're voting on a whole host of issues that some of them find more important than others. Gay rights, the economy, rent, all those kind of things.
We sit here in the U.S. and we assume that national security is the #1 issue facing Israelis, given that
the neighborhood they live in.
Yeah, but you're saying that is not the case?
It often isn't the case. It's remarkable. Again, having lived in Israel, having served in the army in Israel, I have the perspective of having been there and being caught up in elections fever and politics in Israel, which is every Israeli is involved in politics. It's a national pastime. And then living outside of Israel now and viewing it from a very different prism. And when I'm on the outside, I think I have a bigger perspective. And frankly, in American elections, I personally vote on national security first, economy second, and everything else a distant third, but a lot of people don't.
All right. Well, that's why I say this jokingly, perhaps there should be an IQ test to be qualified to vote. All right, Barry Nussbaum, you say you've seen 5 examples of the Obama White House trying to swing the election against Benjamin Netanyahu. Briefly, quickly, what are those 5?
Yeah, I can run them down real quick. There have been a number of very interesting coincidences that have taken place over the last several months. To begin with, the Robert Menendez coming indictment that was just announced right after Menendez came out and said he was opposed to what the president, his own party leader, was doing in regards to Iran. Number 2, there has been and was continuing a tremendous boycott pressure on Netanyahu's speech, and Dems were very strongly pressured not even to meet with him.
Well, how does that affect the voter in Israel?
Well, what the voter in Israel is seeing is discord between the president and the leader of the current state of Israel, which is Bibi. So they don't want that. They don't want rancor between their biggest ally and between their government.
And I can tell you that, I know a lot of Israelis, and including Israelis in my family, who have said that the fact that so many Democrats are vocally speaking against Netanyahu is scaring them. Because they're worried about the relationship with Israel.
That's number 2.
Okay, so 3. National Security Council just replaced the Middle East expert who's in charge of policy in regards to Israel. A guy named Phil Gordon was just appointed. He's a rabid anti-Israel policymaker.
And he's a Hamas apologist, as I understand.
He's met with them when it was against the law to meet with them. He writes policy that is grossly anti-Israel, and he's now in charge of our national security.
This affects the Israeli voter because they see what the U.S. is doing.
Right. Well, they're seeing policy making coming from somebody who doesn't like the government of Israel.
Right. Number 4.
Number 4. There was a not widely publicized but very prevalent partial arms embargo during the war last summer, and it was made very clear from the Obama administration the arms are being cut off that Israel was using to defend the citizens because they didn't like the way Netanyahu was posturing.
Why would not groups like yours or any other Jewish American groups blast that out and make that widely known? I think most Americans are not aware.
Well, believe it or not, there was tremendous communication that went to Congress, and the Congress made such a big noise about it that the embargo was lifted.
We're down less than a minute. What's number 5?
The last one was, if you've heard recently, Israel has been vocally announced to be cut out of the negotiations regarding Iran, to the point where we are not even briefing Israel anymore on what's going on in the negotiations with
they're showing Israel the cold shoulder, which will upset or concern Israeli citizens. Micha, we're down to less than 30 seconds. Tell us about this other candidate, Herzog. Here in America, we know that if you vote for Barack Obama, we didn't know it in 2008, but now we know you get a far left-wing ideologue, or at least someone who caters to that base. Well, what is Herzog? I mean, I can't see. He's not a...
Herzog comes from, a very well-known Israeli family, but his personal politics has made it very clear that he thinks that Netanyahu is too hard-line. Netanyahu is too hard-line when it comes to the outside world. Netanyahu is too hard-line with the negotiations with the Palestinians. And look, I think it says a lot that the Arabs, particularly the Palestinian Authority, Hamas even, are saying that they want Netanyahu to lose, and they're hoping Herzog wins.
Herzog sounds like Barack Obama.
In many ways, he is.
Sort of a European socialist.
Yeah, and again, all the European socialist governments are also saying they're hoping Netanyahu loses and Herzog wins.
All right, so that election is Tuesday.
It is Tuesday.
All right, well, we thank Micha Danzig, former Israeli soldier, Middle East analyst, and Barry Nussbaum, founder of the Israel Group. We thank you for coming in and shedding some perspective and light on what's happening over there.